Hello everybody! It's nearly Christmas now. Are you excited? I know I am. The thing about Christmas is that everyone has their own version of it, don't they? Even the nativity story. I was reading about one that took place in a school in Liverpool not so long ago, where just as they were getting into their costumes, little Harry, who was only 5 and was one of the 3 wise men, decided that he didn't like his costume, and the only thing he would wear was his Liverpool strip. So there he was, one of the 3 wise men, 2 of them dressed out in tea towels and fine robes and crowns, and the 3rd one wearing a Liverpool strip. I don't suppose it was the one sponsored by Crown Paints either. But if that wasn't bad enough, he then refused to hand his gift over to Jesus and tore it open himself. I heard of another nativity play where one of the wise men took a liking to the angel's wand. Now, I didn't know angels had wands. I thought they carried swords, but this one had a wand. And the young man took such a big shine to it that he decided to mug the angel and steal it from her. Maybe he wasn't such a wise man after all. But I think my favourite nativity story, and actually this is a bit of a sad one really, it is the time that Mary passes baby Jesus to Joseph. And he's cradling the doll in his arm, gently rocking it backwards and forwards, and then the doll's head fell off. Everyone has their own version of the nativity story. But if we want to know God's version of the nativity story, of the birth of Jesus, if we want to understand why it's so important, then we have to go all the way back to the original script, to the Bible. And when we do that, it tells us 4 absolutely astonishing things about Jesus, which I think make it so important that we think about him at this Christmas time. Here's the first one. His biography was written before he was born. Now, a biography is the story of someone's life. So think about that. The story of Jesus' life was written before he was born. How can that be possible? Well, if you were to read through the first half of the Bible, the Old Testament, you'd find lots and lots of promises there made by God about the details of Jesus' birth. Many of these promises were made not just 100 years, but hundreds and hundreds, even 700 years before Jesus was born, about where he'd be born in the city of David, Bethlehem, about which family he'd come from, the family of David, how he'd be born to a virgin, that his name would be called Emmanuel, which means God with us, and that soon after his birth he'd have to flee to Egypt. And these promises, as I say, were made hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus was born. But that's only the start of the story. You see, in the Old Testament there are lots and lots of promises about Jesus' life too. Details, prophecies written down long before he was born. Things that he would say and do. And all the details of the cruel and horrible way he would die on a Roman cross, all written down hundreds of years before anybody had ever been crucified anywhere. Isn't that amazing? There's no one else in history like Jesus. No one whose life story was written down before he was born. Here's the second amazing thing about Jesus' birth. His life story didn't begin with his birth. Now, we celebrate Christmas as Jesus' birthday, and as you'll see, I'm wearing my special Happy Birthday Jesus Christmas jumper to remind us of that fact. But unlike any of us, Jesus' life didn't begin at his birth. Imagine that. The Bible tells us that Jesus didn't become God at his birth. He was God from the very beginning, all the way back from before the beginning of time. Just 1 minute after his birth in Bethlehem, he was older than all of the stars in the sky. Can you imagine that? He's even older than your teachers. Jesus is the forever God wearing human skin. His life story didn't begin on his birthday. Isn't that amazing? Here's the third amazing thing about Jesus being born. For all we make a big fuss of Christmas, actually, the days around Jesus' death are more important than the days around his birth. The Bible tells us a lot about Jesus' birth, but it says even more about his death. That doesn't mean his birth isn't important. It just means that his death is so much more important, because that's what keeps us safe from death forever. We'll talk about that lots more, I'm sure, at Easter. Here's the last amazing fact about Jesus' birth. And I hope you're keeping track of all these amazing facts, because this one I think is possibly the strangest, but also the most special of all of them. So here's the fourth amazing fact about Jesus' birth. Jesus being born means we can be born again. Do you know the carol, Hark the Herald Angels Sing? I bet you've probably sung it in school at some point. I certainly like that one a lot. It was written by a famous preacher, a famous English preacher from many, many years ago called Charles Wesley. And he wanted to try to sum up all of the most important truths about the Christmas story in his song. And here's what he writes in the final verse. Hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace. Hail the Son of Righteousness. Light and life to all he brings. Risen with healing in his wings. Mild he lays his glory by. Born that we no more may die. Born to raise the sons of earth. Born to give them second birth. Now, we all worry about a lot of things in life. But Jesus can keep us safe forever. And the way he does that is by inviting us to be born into his family. As the Christmas carol puts it, he was born to give us second birth. Now, that doesn't mean you get to go back inside your mummy's tummy and come out again. That would be very odd, wouldn't it? It's not a physical birth like that. It's what we call a spiritual birth, a God birth, if you like. And for that, all you have to do is ask God. So this Christmas time, as you settle down to open up your presents, remember the greatest gift of all is Jesus, whose biography was written before he was born, whose life story didn't begin with his birth, and about whom the days around his death are actually far more important than around his birth, and who is the one who means we can be born again. He offers us a very special hope that he can keep us safe forever. All we have to do is ask him. So I hope you have an absolutely fabulous Christmas, and we'll see you all again in the new year. God bless. Can I pray for you? Dear God, thank you for sending Jesus into the world so that we can become part of your family. Keep us safe this Christmas time and help us to enjoy you forever. Amen.